The music stopped. Not slowly, not softly. It just died. Every head turned at once. In the center of the grand hall, under the golden lights, Don Valentino sat still on his chair. His birthday party had everything. Rich people, loud laughter, expensive drinks. But now, there was only silence. Because two women were kneeling in front of him. On his left, Isabella, the rich, perfect woman everyone expected him to marry. Her red dress shined like fire. In her hand was a diamond ring that sparkled so bright it hurt the eyes. On his right, a maid. Simple uniform, quiet face. Elena. Someone no one ever noticed. But tonight, everyone was staring at her. Both women held out rings. Both were proposing. At the same time.
Gasps filled the room. Some guests even stood up in shock. Don Valentino leaned back slowly, his eyes moving from one woman to the other. His jaw tightened. This was not part of the plan. This was not supposed to happen. Isabella spoke first. "Choose me," she said with a calm smile. "I can give you power, respect, everything you deserve." The crowd nodded. Of course, that made sense. Then Elena finally spoke. Her voice was soft, but it cut through the room like a knife. "I don't have power," she said. "I don't have money." A small pause. Then she looked straight into his eyes. "But I have something you lost." Don Valentino froze. Something in his chest moved, something he had buried for years. The room felt colder. "What do you mean?" he asked slowly. Elena's hand shook slightly as she lifted the ring. "I have your past." The diamond ring sparkled, but the golden ring, it glowed. And in that moment, Don Valentino's breath stopped. Because deep inside, he was starting to remember. If you're already feeling the tension, pause and drop a like right now, because what he remembers next will change everything. Elena's eyes filled with tears. "You promised," she whispered. The words hit him like a punch. A memory tried to rise. A broken street. Rain. A girl crying. His hands slowly gripped the chair. No, it couldn't be. Not her. Not now. The crowd waited. The boss of the city, speechless. And then Elena said one name. A name he had not heard in years. A name that made his heart stop. The name echoed in his head. Not loud, but deep, like something buried, finally breaking free. "Elena? Is that really you?" Don Valentino whispered. The room went still again. Guests looked at each other in confusion. Some laughed softly. "How can a maid matter this much?" one man whispered. But Don Valentino was not laughing. His hands were shaking. Because now he remembered. Years ago, before the power, before the money, before the fear, he was just a poor young man trying to survive. Cold nights, empty pockets, no one to trust. Until he met her, a girl with kind eyes, a girl who shared her last piece of bread with him, a girl who stayed when everyone else walked away. Elena. Back in the present, she was still kneeling, still holding the glowing ring. But her eyes were different now. Not just soft, stronger, sad, but strong. "You said you would come back for me,"
she said quietly. Every word hit him like a heavy stone. I waited. Silence. I waited for years. A woman in the crowd covered her mouth. The rich guests were no longer smiling. Now, they were watching. Closely. Don Valentino stood up slowly. His chair scraped loudly against the marble floor. You disappeared, he said, his voice low. No, Elena replied. You did. That one sentence broke something inside him.
Isabella suddenly stood up from her kneeling position. Her calm smile was gone. "This is nonsense," she said sharply. "She's a maid. This is clearly a trick." She stepped closer, holding her diamond ring higher. "Focus," she told him. "You have a future to protect." The tension snapped again. Past or future? Heart or power? Elena lowered her eyes for a second. Then she said something no one expected. "I didn't come here to win." The room froze. Don Valentino's eyes narrowed. "Then why are you here?" he asked. She looked up again. Tears, but no weakness. "I came to say goodbye." If that line hit you, type Team Elena or Team Isabella in your mind right now. Also, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because the choice he makes next will hurt someone forever.
Don Valentino took one slow step forward. "Goodbye?" he repeated. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. Elena gently placed the glowing ring on the floor between them. "I'm leaving tonight," she said. "And after this, you will never see me again." His chest tightened. A strange fear rose inside him. The kind of fear he had not felt in years. Not from enemies, not from guns, but from losing something he didn't even know he still had. Then she added one last sentence. Soft, but deadly. "And this time, I won't wait." His heart dropped. Because deep down, he knew something terrible was about to happen. And he was already too late. Don Valentino could not breathe. "Leaving?" he said again, like the word did not make sense. Elena did not answer at first. She just looked at him, like she was seeing him for the last time. And maybe she was. "Do you remember that night?" she asked softly. A cold feeling ran down his spine. Because he did. Or at least he thought he did. Years ago. Rain fell hard that night. The streets were dark. Elena stood under a broken roof, waiting. He had told her, "Stay here. I will come back for you." She believed him. She always did. But that night, he never came back. Back to the present. "I waited until morning," Elena said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "I thought maybe something happened to you." Don Valentino swallowed hard. "It did," he said quickly. "I was attacked. I almost died." Elena nodded slowly. "I know."
That made him freeze. "You know?" She took a small breath. "I saw it." The room gasped. "I followed you that night," she continued. "I was scared. Something didn't feel right." Her hands trembled slightly. "I saw the men attack you. I saw you fall." Don Valentino's eyes widened. "You were there?" Tears rolled down her face now. "Yes." A long pause. "And I tried to help you."
The entire room felt heavy. Even Isabella went silent. But before I could reach you, Elena's voice broke. Someone grabbed me. A chill spread across the room. They covered my mouth. I couldn't scream. Don Valentino stepped closer. His heart was racing now. "Who?" he asked. But Elena shook her head. "I never saw their face. They took me away that night," she said. "Far away." Her voice turned empty.
By the time I escaped, you were gone. Gone. Not dead. Not missing. Gone. Don Valentino ran a hand through his hair. "I thought you left me," he said. "I thought you chose to go." Elena let out a sad, soft laugh. "I thought the same thing about you." If this hurts a little, that's because this is where everything broke. Stay with this story, and don't forget to subscribe, because the truth is about to get even darker. Silence again.
Heavy. Painful. Then Don Valentino asked the question that had been burning inside him. "Why didn't you come back sooner?" Elena looked down at the glowing ring, then back at him. "I did." His heart skipped. "But when I found you," she said slowly, "you were no longer the man I knew." A wave of whispers filled the room. Dangerous whispers. Because everyone knew what that meant. He had become something else. Something darker. Elena took a deep breath. "You had power," she said. "You had people. You had everything." A small pause. "Except me." Don Valentino felt something crack inside him, something real, something painful. Then she said the one thing that changed everything again. "I tried to reach you." His eyes locked on hers. "But your men," she whispered. "They chased me away." His blood turned cold. Because now, this was no longer just a story of lost love. This was something worse. It meant he didn't just lose her. He pushed her away. And just when the truth felt too heavy to carry, Elena dropped one final line. Quiet, but sharp. "The man who saved you that night?" She paused. Don Valentino leaned closer. "Is standing in this room right now." His eyes widened. The crowd turned. Fear spread like fire. Because now, this was not just about the past. This was about a hidden enemy. Right here. Watching. The room turned cold. Not from the air. From fear. "The man who saved you is here," Elena said again. Every guest froze. Slowly, heads began to turn. One by one. Looking around. Searching. Wondering. Who? Don Valentino did not move at first. His eyes stayed locked on Elena. "You're lying," he said. But his voice was not strong. Not like before. Elena shook her head. "I wish I was." A glass dropped somewhere in the crowd. Crash. No one laughed. No one spoke. "Point him out," Don Valentino said slowly. A command. But it sounded more like a plea. Elena's eyes moved past him. Not to the crowd, not to the doors, but behind him. Don Valentino's heart skipped. Very slowly, he turned. Standing just a few steps behind him was his most trusted man, Marco. The man who had been with him for years. The man who never left his side. The man who knew all his secrets. "No," Don Valentino whispered. Marco smiled, calm, cold, like he had been waiting for this moment. "Surprised?" Marco said. The crowd gasped. Guards shifted nervously. Some reached for their weapons, but no one moved. "Not yet." "You?" Don Valentino said. "You saved me?" Marco tilted his head. "Yes." A pause. "Someone had to." "Then why hide it?" Don Valentino asked, his voice rising now. "Why wait until now?" Marco's smile faded. "Because you were not ready to hear the truth." The room felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were closing in. Elena stood slowly now, no longer kneeling, no longer small. "He didn't just save you," she said. "He made sure you became who you are today." Don Valentino's chest tightened. "What does that mean?" Marco stepped forward, slow, confident, dangerous. "That night," Marco said, "I had a choice. To let you die, or to build you into something greater." Silence. Dead silence. "So I saved you," he continued. "I removed the weak boy and helped create the man everyone fears." A few guests stepped back, fear now clear on their faces. "And Elena?" Don Valentino asked, his voice shaking now. "What about her?" Marco looked at her. No emotion. Collateral. The word hit like a gunshot. Elena closed her eyes for a second. Pain flashed across her face. But she stayed strong. "You took her," Don Valentino said. Not a question. A statement. Marco didn't deny it. She was in the way. The room exploded into whispers. Shock, anger, fear. If this twist caught you off guard, stay with this story. Because what Don Valentino does next will decide who he really is. Don Valentino stepped closer, his fists clenched, his eyes darker than ever. "You ruined everything," he said. Marco smiled again. "No, I perfected it." Then he leaned in slightly, close enough that only Don Valentino could hear. "And now," he whispered, "you have one last choice to make." Don Valentino's heart pounded. What choice? Marco's eyes flicked down to the two rings on the floor, the diamond and the glowing gold. Power, Marco said. Or truth. The entire room held its breath, because whatever he chose next would change everything, forever. No one moved. No one even breathed. All eyes were on Don Valentino. On the floor in front of him, two rings. One diamond, one glowing gold. Power, or truth, Marco repeated. His voice was calm. Too calm, like he already knew the answer. Isabella stepped forward quickly. "This is not a real choice," she said, her voice sharp. She pointed at the diamond ring. "This is your future." Her eyes locked on Don Valentino. "With me, you keep your empire, your power, your respect." She lowered her voice. don't throw everything away for a memory. The word memory hit hard, because Elena was not just a memory. She was something he tried to forget and failed. Elena didn't move. She didn't beg. She didn't cry again. She just watched him. Quiet. Waiting. Don Valentino looked at her. Really looked at her. Not as a maid, not as someone small, but as the girl from the rain. The girl who stayed. Then he looked at the diamond ring. Bright. Perfect. Safe. Then the golden ring. Soft glow. Warm. Dangerous. His chest felt tight. For the first time in years, he was afraid to choose. Say something, Isabella snapped. Her patience was gone now. You're wasting time. Time. The one thing he never worried about before. But now, it felt like it was running out. Fast. Elena finally spoke. Soft, steady. I told you, I didn't come to win. Don Valentino's eyes snapped back to her. Then why are you still here? He asked. She gave a small, sad smile. Because I wanted to see if you would remember who you were. That line hit deeper than anything else. If you were in his place right now, what would you choose? Power or truth? Hold that answer, because his choice might shock you. Don Valentino closed his eyes for a second. Just 1 second. But in that moment, he saw everything. The cold nights, the empty hunger, the girl who gave him hope. Then, he opened his eyes. Slowly. He stepped forward. The room leaned in. First step, toward the rings. Second step, closer. His hand reached down, hovered, shaking slightly. Isabella held her breath. Marco watched closely. Elena said nothing. Then, he picked up a ring. The crowd gasped. But before anyone could react, he spoke. Low, clear, final. I'm tired. Confusion spread across the room. Tired of power without peace, he said. Tired of winning, but losing everything that mattered. His eyes turned to Elena. I remember now. Her breath caught. And then, he dropped one ring. Clink. The sound echoed like a gunshot, but no one could see clearly which ring he dropped. Elena's eyes widened. Isabella's face went pale. Marco's smile slowly faded. Because in that moment, everything changed. But no one knew if it changed for better or for worse. The sound of the ring hitting the floor echoed in every corner. Clink. No one moved. No one spoke. They all stared, trying to see, trying to understand. Then the truth became clear. The ring on the floor was the diamond. A loud gasp filled the room. Some guests even stepped back in shock. Isabella's hand slowly dropped. Her face turned pale. "No," she whispered. Don Valentino stood still. In his hand, the glowing golden ring. Silence. Heavy. Unreal. Elena's lips parted slightly. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just looked at him, like she didn't believe it.
"You chose her?" Isabella said, her voice shaking now. "After everything I offer you?" Don Valentino looked at her. Not with anger, not with hate, but with something worse. Clarity. "You offered me power," he said. "But I already have that." A small pause. "And it cost me too much." Isabella's eyes filled with rage. "This is a mistake," she snapped. "You're throwing away everything." "No," he said quietly. "I'm taking something back." Marco stepped forward. His calm mask cracked for the first time. "You think this changes anything?" he said. "You think choosing her makes you free?" Don Valentino turned slowly to him. "No," he replied. "But it tells me who I am."
That answer made Marco's smile disappear completely. If you didn't expect that choice, this is where the story turns dangerous, because power doesn't let go that easily. Suddenly, a loud click. Guards raised their weapons. Not at the crowd, at Don Valentino. Gasps filled the hall. Panic spread. People stepped back. Some tried to leave, but the doors slammed shut. Locked. Marco sighed softly. "Disappointing," he said. Don Valentino didn't move, didn't panic. He just stared at him. "You planned this," he said. Marco nodded. "Of course." A small pause. "I gave you everything. Power, fear, control. And now you throw it away? For a girl from the past?" Elena stepped closer to Don Valentino. Not hiding, not afraid. "I'm not from the past," she said. "I'm the truth he ran from." Marco's eyes turned cold. And truth gets people killed. The guards tightened their grip on their weapons. The room felt like it would explode. Don Valentino stepped forward, putting himself slightly in front of Elena. "You won't touch her," he said. Marco laughed softly. "You still don't understand." He raised his hand slightly. And in that moment, everything shifted. Because some of the guards did not move. They didn't raise their weapons. They didn't follow Marco's command. They were watching. Waiting. Marco's eyes narrowed. "What is this?" he said slowly. Don Valentino's lips moved slightly. A small, dangerous smile. "You're not the only one who plans ahead," he said. The room froze again. Because now, this was no longer just about love. This was war. And it had already begun. It happened in 1 second. A single signal. A small nod from Don Valentino. And then everything exploded. Some guards turned their guns away from Don Valentino and pointed them at Marco. "Drop your weapons," one of them shouted. The crowd screamed. Guests ran in every direction. Glasses shattered. Chairs fell. The beautiful birthday hall turned into chaos. Marco didn't move, not even a step. He just looked around, slowly, carefully. Then he smiled.
Again. "You really think this is enough?" he asked calmly.
Before anyone could react, more men rushed in. From the side doors, from the back halls, hidden men. All armed, all loyal to Marco. The balance shifted again. Now it was not clear who was winning. Elena grabbed Don Valentino's arm. "We need to leave," she said quickly. "This is not safe." But he didn't move. His eyes were locked on Marco. "No," he said. "This ends tonight. If you think he's walking away from this, you're wrong. This is the moment everything burns. Stay with it." Marco stepped forward slowly. Gunfire had not started yet. But it was close.
Too close. "You should have taken the easy path," Marco said. "Power, control, a quiet life at the top." Don Valentino shook his head. "There is nothing quiet about a life built on lies." Marco stopped. "Just a few steps away now. You think choosing her makes you strong?" he asked. Don Valentino's voice dropped. "No." A pause. "It makes me honest." That word again. Honest. Marco's eyes darkened. "Honest men don't survive in my world," he said. "Then maybe it's time your world ends," Don Valentino replied. Silence. Sharp. Deadly. Then, a gunshot. Everyone flinched. But it didn't come from Don Valentino's side. Or Marco's. It came from the crowd. A man in a suit dropped to the floor. Blood spreading fast. Screams filled the room. "Sniper!" someone shouted. Panic exploded again. Elena's grip tightened. "This is bigger than both of you," she said. Don Valentino looked around quickly. Something was wrong. Very wrong. This wasn't just Marco anymore. This was something else. Something hidden. Something watching. Then, another shot rang out. And this time, the bullet was heading straight for Elena. Don Valentino's eyes widened. He moved fast, too fast to think. And in that moment, he made a choice that could not be undone. The gunshot cut through the air. Sharp. Deadly. Fast. The bullet was coming straight for Elena. No time to think. No time to plan. Don Valentino moved. He stepped in front of her. Bang! For 1 second, everything went quiet. Then, a gasp spread across the room. Don Valentino staggered. His body jerked slightly. Then, he dropped to one knee. "Elena," he whispered. Her eyes went wide. "No, no, 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 no," she cried, rushing forward. Blood. Dark. Spreading across his shirt. The most feared man in the city was bleeding. The crowd froze. Even Marco didn't speak. Elena dropped beside him, her hands shaking as she tried to stop the blood. "Stay with me," she said, her voice breaking. "You can't do this now." Don Valentino gave a weak smile. "You said you wouldn't wait again," he said softly. Tears fell from her eyes. "Then don't make me lose you again." If this moment hit you, stay right here. Comment and subscribe, because what he says next will break you. He looked at her. Really looked at her. Like nothing else mattered anymore. "I never forgot you," he said. "I just buried it." Elena shook her head. "Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine." But deep down, she knew something was wrong. Very wrong. Around them, chaos still moved. Guards shouted.
People ran. Another shot rang out in the distance. But in that small space, it felt like only they existed. Don Valentino's hand slowly reached for hers. Weak. Cold. "I should have come back," he said. "Elena, I should have come back," he said. Elena held his hand tightly. "You can still fix it," she whispered. "Just stay." A small pause. Then, he placed the glowing golden ring in her hand. Her breath caught. "I choose you," he said. Her heart broke. Because it sounded like goodbye. Suddenly, a voice shouted from across the hall. "The sniper is inside!" Everyone froze. Inside? That made no sense. Don Valentino's eyes shifted slightly, trying to focus, trying to understand. Then he saw it. Not far away, a figure slowly lowering a weapon, blending into the crowd. And when their eyes met, Don Valentino's expression changed. Shock. Real shock. Because he knew that face. And this time, it wasn't Marco. It was someone else. Someone even closer. Don Valentino's vision blurred, but he forced his eyes to stay open because what he saw did not make sense. The shooter stood still, half hidden in the crowd, gun still in hand, smoke rising from the barrel. And then the face became clear. Isabella. Elena froze. Her breath stopped. "No," she whispered. The room erupted. Guests screamed. Some tried to run again. Others just stood there, shaking. Isabella slowly stepped forward. No fear, no panic, only calm. "You," Don Valentino said, his voice weak. "Why?" Isabella tilted her head slightly, almost disappointed. "You really thought I was here for love?" she asked. Silence hit hard. Elena's grip tightened around Don Valentino's hand. "You were proposing," she said. Isabella let out a soft laugh. "That was the easiest part." She lifted the diamond ring again. But this time, it didn't look like a symbol of love. It looked like a weapon. "I needed you distracted," she said. "And you were." Marco's eyes narrowed. Even he looked surprised. "You weren't part of my plan," he said. Isabella glanced at him. "And you weren't the only one making moves." The tension snapped again. Now there were 3 sides. Don Valentino, Marco, and Isabella. If you thought the story was already crazy, this is where it gets dangerous, because now no one can be trusted. Elena looked between them, confused, afraid. "What do you want?" she asked. Isabella's eyes locked on Don Valentino. "Everything," she said. A pause. Then she took another step forward. "You built an empire," she continued. "Now I take it." Don Valentino tried to stand. Pain shot through his body. But he didn't stop. "You think killing me gives you power?" he said. Isabella smiled. "No." A small pause. "It gives me control." Marco stepped in quickly. "You're making a mistake," he warned. Isabella didn't even look at him. "No," she said. "I'm finishing what you started." That line hit hard, because now everything connected. Marco built the empire. Isabella planned to take it. And Don Valentino was just the centerpiece. Elena helped him stand slightly, her face full of fear now. "We have to go," she whispered. But Don Valentino shook his head, slowly. "No more running," he said. He looked at Isabella, then Marco, then back at Elena. "This ends now." The room held its breath, because the next move would decide everything. Power, love, betrayal, and only one would survive. The hall was no longer a party. It was a battlefield. 3 people stood at the center of it all. Don Valentino, bleeding but standing. Elena, holding him but refusing to let him fall. Isabella, calm, holding the gun like she had already won. And just behind them, Marco, watching, waiting. "No more games," Isabella said. Her voice was cold now, final. She raised the gun, pointed it straight at Don Valentino. "Drop the ring," she ordered. Elena's heart raced. "No!" she cried. Don Valentino didn't move. The golden ring was still in his hand, tight, like it was the only real thing left. "You don't understand," Isabella continued. "If you live, you fight me. If you die, I take everything." A small pause. Then, "So choose. This is it, the moment everything has been building to. Stay with us, because his next move decides who wins and who loses everything." Don Valentino took a slow breath. Pain shot through his chest, but his eyes stayed steady. "You're wrong," he said. Isabella frowned slightly. "I don't need to win," he continued. "I just need to choose right." Her grip tightened on the gun. "This is your last chance," she warned. But Don Valentino didn't look at her anymore. He looked at Elena. The noise, the chaos, the danger, all faded. Just her. "I failed you once," he said softly. Tears filled her eyes. "Then don't fail me again," she whispered. A small, broken smile touched his face. "I won't." Then, he did something no one expected. He placed the golden ring in Elena's hand and gently closed her fingers over it. Her breath caught. "This was never about me choosing," he said. Isabella's eyes widened slightly. "It was about giving you the choice. This time." Silence. Silence. Deep. Heavy. Elena's hand trembled. The ring glowed softly. "Stay," he whispered. "Or go." The entire room held its breath. Because now, it was no longer his decision. It was hers. Isabella's patience snapped. "Enough!" she shouted. Her finger pulled the trigger. Bang! Elena's eyes widened. But this time, the bullet didn't hit Don Valentino. Someone else stepped in. A body dropped. Marco. He fell to the ground, blood spreading fast. The room froze. Again. Even Isabella looked shocked. Marco coughed slightly. A weak laugh escaped his lips. "Looks like," he said, "I made one wrong move." Don Valentino stared at him, conflicted. "Why?" he asked. Marco smiled faintly. "Because," he whispered, "I wanted to see who you would become." His eyes slowly closed, and just like that, he was gone. Silence filled the hall. Now only two remained: Isabella and Elena. Power and truth. Isabella raised the gun again, but her hands were no longer steady because something had changed, and she could feel it. Elena stepped forward, slowly, calmly, still holding the ring. "No more running," she said. Her voice was no longer soft. It was strong. And in that moment, even Isabella hesitated, because the girl she once ignored was no longer just a maid. She was something else now. Something dangerous. Something real. The hall was silent. No music, no movement. Just 3 people left standing in the middle of everything. Isabella raised the gun again, but this time, her hands were shaking. "Don't come any closer," she warned. Elena didn't stop. Step, step, step. Her eyes were calm, not afraid, not angry, just clear. "You already lost," Elena said softly. Isabella's face twisted. "I haven't lost anything," she snapped. "You lost control," Elena replied. "And that's all you ever wanted." That hit deep. Too deep. If you've made it this far, don't look away now. The final moment is here, and it will stay with you. Isabella's finger tightened on the trigger. "Stop!" she shouted. But Elena kept walking. "I'm not here to fight you," she said. "Then why are you still standing?" Isabella cried. Elena stopped, just a few steps away now. "Because I'm not afraid of losing," she said. Silence. That one sentence shook the entire room. Behind her, Don Valentino struggled to stay on his feet, watching, hoping, fearing. Isabella laughed suddenly, a broken laugh. "You think you're strong?" she said. "You have nothing." Elena looked down at the ring in her hand, then back at her. "You're right," she said. A small pause. "I don't have power. I don't have an empire." She lifted her hand slightly. The golden ring glowed softly. "But I have something you will never understand." Isabella's eyes narrowed. "What?" she demanded. Elena's voice was steady. "I have peace." The word landed like a storm. Isabella froze. Just for a second. And that second was everything. Don Valentino moved. Fast. He grabbed a nearby guard's arm, turned, and knocked the gun away from Isabella's hand. Clang! The weapon slid across the floor. Gasps filled the hall. Guards rushed forward. Isabella fell to her knees, shocked, broken. "It's over," Don Valentino said, his voice low. She looked up at him, eyes full of anger and loss. "You chose her," she said. He shook his head slowly. "No," he replied. "I chose who I wanted to be." Silence. Isabella closed her eyes, defeated. And just like that, it ended. The power, the lies, the control, gone. Don Valentino turned to Elena. Still weak, still bleeding, but different now. Will you stay? He asked. The question hung in the air. Heavy. Final. Elena looked at him. Really looked at him. Then, she gently placed the golden ring back into his hand. His heart dropped. I didn't come back for love, she said softly. A pause. I came to let go. His chest tightened. And now, I can, she finished. Tears filled his eyes. For the first time in years, she gave him a small, sad smile. Goodbye, Valentino. And then she turned and walked away. Not running, not looking back, just walking. The doors opened. Light poured in. And she was gone. Don Valentino stood there, frozen, holding the ring. Power in one hand, truth in the other. And for the first time in his life, he had both. But the one thing he wanted most was already gone. The end. If this story hit you, this is your moment. Would you have stayed or walked away like Elena? Drop your answer in your mind